January 25th of this year, Krista Tippett, journalist and author, wrote these words: "This is an age of devastating tumult. It is an age of magnificent possibility. Much is breaking, much is being born. The two go hand in hand, and that is one of the deepest and strangest, most terrible and most redemptive truths of human reality." End quote. That was January 25th. Today is March the 2nd. What Tippett so eloquently described has become the experience of our everyday lives, sometimes experiencing these seeming contradictions multiple times in one day. Every day, we're bombarded by news, local, national, global, plus analyses of what is taking place. Horrifying videos surfacing, incomprehensible statements and accusations, criminals being championed, heroes being humiliated. It's enough to cause us to grab a hold of our heads in an attempt to retain some level of sanity. On some days, on the same day, babies are being born and adored. Life-saving interventions are being discovered. Books are being published. New relationships are forged. Kindness flows between one person and another. In order to remain steadfast or grounded, we need to take a deep breath, review all that we've heard and felt in our bodies, seen with our eyes, and settle into the question: what is solid? What is unchanging? What can be trusted? Even what we consider truth is under assault. Lies have become normative, and truth seems to be elusive. There is tension with truth. Whose truth? Truth in what context? In this longer passage that Amy and Steve read for us, apparent contradictory truth hits us in two ways: argued truth and experienced truth. So what is truth? Jesus made a statement at the Jewish festival of booths which people didn't understand. They heard his words, but they responded from the gut. Words can be argued, experiences are lived. There were differences of opinions about Jesus' words, resulting in disputes, leading to confusion, and then finally to insult. Because they didn't understand the statement, the crowd responded to the person making the statement. This is a prophet. No, he's the Christ. Oh, of course he isn't the Christ. How could he be? His credentials don't match. The Christ doesn't come from Galilee, but from Bethlehem. Don't you even know the scriptures? And in their context, that was the ultimate insult. So there was division. The governing authorities, the chief priests, the Pharisees put pressure on the guards who, in their estimation, should have already arrested Jesus. But for what? The guards who had the authority to arrest people said they just couldn't because Jesus was impactful. Jesus said things in a way they had never heard before. The guards' honesty resulted in a backlash from their leaders. Have you too been deceived? Have any of the leaders believed in him? Has any Pharisee? No, only this crowd which doesn't know the law, and they are under God's curse. Whoa, hold on, religious elites. Here they are, stabbing those considered ignorant not only with insults, but with curses. This is what weak people do in positions of power when these people in power feel threatened. They lash out with insults. But then one of their own. Nicodemus quotes another statement from the law. Don't judge someone without first hearing them out. It would seem that Nicodemus pits one statement of the law against another. The Christ is to come from Bethlehem, and, of course we know he can't, and we can't judge someone without hearing them out first. There's tension. Can both things be true at the same time, or is someone here missing the point? Again, the Pharisees resort to personal insults, sneering that Nicodemus must also come from Galilee. If this is his reasoning, they insult him, insinuating he's ignorant of Scripture. When someone in a position of power fears appearing ignorant or losing credibility or power themselves, one tactic is to project and to hurl insults at others, to throw up a smokescreen. It takes a strong person to withstand insults. This, what we've just thought about, is an example of argued truth. Whenever something is discussed that seems true along with something that does not, one must remember that there is such a thing as deep truth. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Frank Wilczek explains deep truth from a scientific place, asserting that deep truths are not surface truths that can be reduced merely to fact that can be proven or unproven. One feature of a deep truth is that that its opposite is also likely true. Let me read that again. One feature of a deep truth is that its opposite is also likely true. Okay, before this feels like a mind game for you, let's think about it with this statement that Jesus made. The people that said Jesus cannot be the Christ because he doesn't come from Bethlehem, he comes from Galilee. Okay, if we use the lens of right and wrong, one of these assertions is right and the other is wrong. But actually both are true. Because of Caesar Augustus' census driving the pregnant Mary to Bethlehem, he was born in Bethlehem. But his mother came from Nazareth, which is in Galilee. And she traveled to Bethlehem. But because he was born in Bethlehem, but lived and grew up in Nazareth, which is Galilee, both are true. This third possibility sheds light on what otherwise seems like a right or wrong discussion. When the context or the history is known, this third option emerges. Historical context is critical. All we have to do is think about what happened this week. Angry observers of the exchange in the Oval Office point to a seeming lack of gratitude based on the fact that the Ukrainian president did not express gratitude in the way and at the time others demanded him to. True, he did not. The Ukrainian president, however, expresses gratitude every time he meets with world leaders, including leadership from the United States. Also true. One could try to litigate the truth and never reach a conclusion. Both are true. The party in question expresses genuine gratitude and also chose not to do so. The third option, taking context and history into consideration, is that this party refused to express gratitude when faced with extortion. There are times when arguing the truth is completely irrelevant. Argued truth can melt into understood deep truth for those who bother to consider the third option, those who consider the historical context. How do we come to that place? The place of moving beyond right or wrong to find another way. Our text states, Each went to their own home. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. What happened in these homes to which they returned? We don't know. But the same people may have come back the next day to litigate another truth based on their law. What happened on the Mount of Olives? We don't know. But this person came back to provide an example of a third option than to debate the truth. After that night, early the next morning, Jesus heads to the temple. Well, that should be a safe place, a sanctuary, a reprieve from yesterday's fiasco. Well, not so quick. While Jesus and all of them who are doing whatever you do in a temple were there, the legal experts and the Pharisees had been out looking for trouble, and I might add, not good trouble. Of course, you'll find it if you look for it, and if you don't find it, you will create trouble. These men, who wielded some level of power, bring a woman to Jesus. They state that this woman was caught in the act of committing adultery. How did they find this woman and her partner? Did someone tip them off? Did someone lay a trap? Did they force their way into this private space? Exactly what did they do with a partner? Presumably a man. It could read like a modern-day story. Targeting women. Blaming a woman. The sequence of seducing a woman, abusing a woman, then accusing a woman. Having no qualms about using a woman as a test for the adversary. Using a woman as collateral damage to bring an accusation against one's enemy. Truly, there is nothing new under the sun. This is a common thread running through all of history. The church never burned witches. It burned women. Control of women. The double standards set for women and men. Believing men, but not women. Believing men should have the power and women should know their place. Believe me, nothing has changed. It is enlightening to observe what Jesus does. He doesn't argue the law of Moses, stating it is not so. Nor does he side with the accusers because of an arbitrary law. He simply takes his time, bends down to the earth, and begins doodling in the sand, giving the accusers plenty of time to reflect. One by one, the accusers drift away, beginning with the elders. Those who had lived life, seen its contradictions, experienced its tension. Those who had lived life long enough that there was nothing to lose. They are the ones who left the angry accusation, humiliation, exploitation right there on the table. They had had enough. Gradually, the remaining accusers followed this unspoken wise counsel of the elders, thus saving a life. A woman's life that had been used, abused, and accused. This is experienced truth, not argued, not litigated, not won. Experienced by a real person dragged into the presence of another real person. Where are today's elders? Who is worthy to lead in situations where truth must be held in tension, benefiting a person rather than a principle? Where are the elders who act boldly, side with those who have been sidelined, those who recognize the futility of putting an adversary, someone ethically superior, to the test? History is filled with moments when leaders break the social contract, wielding power like a weapon instead of a responsibility. That was spoken by Reverend Cameron Trimble. At this point in our national, global, and faith community history, We have no option but to sort through the confusion. We don't have the luxury of remaining on the sidelines, to hang back and hope for the best, to tend only to ourselves and our own interests. There are too many who are living as the accused, too many who are targeted for not fitting in, too many who are developing tests with the intention of gaining an advantage, too many who are living on a razor's edge of anger and hostility. We don't have time to argue the truth. We must experience lived truth, the lived truth that takes into consideration the deeper level beyond the shallow right or wrong, to bend down and doodle in the sand, knowing there is always a third option that arises in this tension, and that option may save a life. We don't have the time to argue about the details of rules and tradition when there is one among us who calls to the thirsty to experience rivers of living water. We don't have time to throw insults at those who recognize what we don't, those who are moved by the one's word who states, "No one ever has spoken this way before." We must lean into the tension. We must tend the targeted people. We must leave the arguments over form and law and tradition to others while we go up to the Mount of Olives to gain the perspective and the strength. And how do we come to that place? Well, exactly like that. Don't each of you go back to your homes and scheme further to argue your way to new depths of contempt. No. Choose the Mount of Olives instead, the place of silence in nature, the place beyond the noise and clamor where the voice of the divine slowly becomes discernible, the place where you can recognize the one who speaks in a way that no one has ever spoken. Then enter a new day equipped to handle lived truth. In order to remain steadfast and sane, every day we need to take many deep breaths, review what we've heard, what we've felt in our bodies, what we've seen with our eyes, and settle into the question, what is solid? What is deep truth? What can be trusted? In addition to that, the question comes, what is argued truth and what is experienced truth? One saps energy, wastes time, and unravels the social fabric. The other deepens our humanity and our ability to discern the call of Jesus, the Christ. This is an age of devastating tumult. It is an age of magnificent possibility. Much is breaking, much is being born. The two go hand in hand. And that is one of the deepest and strangest, most terrible and most redemptive truths of human reality. May we grow to become wisely discerning people. Amen.